All right, hi. This is the second episode of the True Crime Grapevine, and I'm Patti Lee, your Dyslexic Detective, and I'm here to tell you, who probably don't have 3 hours a day to watch true crime, what's been going on at the Grapevine of true crime, and I'm going to give you my personal perspective on what's going on. And so this week we've got a few updates, and let's unpack it. So number one, the Barry Morpheu case. So there was a hearing last Thursday on the 24th. It was not open to the public, and spectators there were, the people that were in there were not allowed to tweet. So we didn't have any information coming out about what happened, but the transcripts were released, and a great YouTuber by the name of, I think it's True Crime by Big E, and on Twitter, his Twitter is The Docket. He got the transcripts, has a real interesting story about what he was allowed to show, even though he paid for them and it was a public record. Definitely go check out his Twitter. But what he said was, so, the motions that were made. So the defense was granted a motion to sever he had an illegal firearm charge. A shortened barrel shotgun was found in the house, and the judge said this is going to be a 5-week trial. We don't want to have to hear all about a murder, and then after they go through all that time, then say, what about this other charge? So he severed that, which means a whole separate jury will hear that charge. Although the prosecution did mention that while they agree that that's okay, they know that the gun was not used. They're not saying the gun was used to shoot the tranquilizer, but they're not agreeing that the gun wasn't used in the demise, they think, of Suzanne. So they're still not sure about that. I mean, they're not committing to not saying that. So, but the actual charge is still severed. And the judge said also that would be prejudicial to talk about an illegal gun possession, like that just makes him look even more guilty. Not that I'm saying he is, but again, this is the Grapevine, so not that I'm saying, yes, it makes him look worse, but easy to do, in my opinion, allegedly, just my speculation. So the docket also reported, so the judge is now Judge Lama instead of Patrick Murphy, who took himself off the case due to a personal conflict. He granted a motion to exclude certain other evidence, so that it wasn't clear what evidence was excluded, and to prohibit the prosecutors from using profiling and victimology. So that is all supposition and speculation, even though it's based on my background is in educational psychology, which is normative psychology. I see the logic in victimology, and it is considered, ology means the study of, but as evidence against a specific person, I can see why that's no bueno. So yeah, throwing that out. And the prosecutors assured the judge that they would not especially use they would not say Barry was had the profile of a wife, killer. So we're not going to call him that, and that's not really evidence, even though that was part of the prosecution's way of finding out, but we're just going to leave that to the side. So then the judge, it was reported that he did deny the defense motion to dismiss the charges of tampering with evidence and attempting to influence witnesses. So that is still going to be part of the trial. There was, the judge identified more motions that were made by both sides about limiting public access, which we don't like. But both sides wanted certain things denied, and they have 7 days from the 24th, so till this coming Thursday, which I believe is March 3rd, to explain why they have to put in submit a brief. The prosecution was denied an extension to provide the defense the witness list. Now, Patrick Murphy, when he had the case in the fall, gave them until March 4th, which is this Friday, to give the prosecution to give the defense their witness list. I'll just say this. I'm personally no fan of Barry Morpheu's, but because we want, if he is found guilty by a jury of his peers, we want it to be a fair trial that's not overturned on some technicality, and not providing the defense with a witness list when it is murder one charge, when it is this man's life, so life and liberty on the line. They need that witness list, and they have had a lot of time to provide it. I am not sure. I guess once we see who the witnesses are, maybe we'll figure out why they're doing this. It seems like they would know. So we'll find out. They do have to turn that in. So the trial is going to start on April 28th. It's supposed to last 5 weeks. They're planning on sending out 1,000 jury summons at the beginning of April. So they will have plenty, hopefully, people to choose from who will be found to be fair by both sides. So that's where we stand on Barry. He's still out on bond. He's able to go see his children he's able to travel out of county to see them. And that's what's going on there. It does seem so now this is all my speculation. My personal opinion is that it seems like the defense is doing what they did with OJ, which is let's attack the prosecution. Let's, again, one of the things they asked for was they want the case dropped based on, they made a motion to dismiss the case, which is made by a defense team over and over. That's like typical, but they based it on prosecution misconduct. Now, to understand that, you have to go back, and there was a CBI, which is like the FBI of the state, Colorado Bureau of Investigations. There was one of the investigators, Mr. Cahill, Cahill, discharged a weapon at his home, shot himself in the hand. It seems to have something to do with there being some light on his gun that he was trying to get off, and maybe that was something he had not been truthful about. I'm not sure how that ties into the investigation, and it certainly doesn't affect the different explanations Barry gave for what he was doing, when and why, and when he had to switch that around. And I personally, I don't know what this guy was doing, but one investigator to me doesn't change the whole scope of a bad marriage, a wife saying she's going to leave somebody, the fact that she said she was afraid of him in text to her friends. She suddenly goes missing. And I will say this, People magazine reported on this, that there was this hearing. And I will just say, a lot of this reporting starts out with Susan Morpheu was missing since, was reported missing Mother's Day after she had gone on a bike ride. That's Barry's story. That is not, as far as we know, and we're just the public, but the evidence so far seems to point to the fact that Suzanne's last, like, proof of life, as they say, the last time she communicated with anybody was a picture, a selfie picture she sent to her boyfriend in Michigan. And that was like at 2:30, right before Barry came home, and his phone was pinging all around the house, which he said, now other people have said, oh, pinging around the house, but maybe the Wi-Fi's bad out there because they lived out, not close to all these cell phone transmitter lines. Maybe he was just sitting in the house and the pings were because bad transmission. But Barry didn't say I was just sitting in the house and it must be bad transmission pings. Barry said, oh, I was shooting 83 chipmunks. Okay. So Barry had a reason for his phone being all around the house, like at about 3 something, where we think, maybe, just maybe, he could have been, I don't know, chasing around his wife, who was never seen or heard from again after that time. But we don't know. That's just my speculation. But when you read that she was last seen, like she was reported missing from her bike ride, no. Barry said go look for her bike. When the bike was found over a side of a road, it looked as if someone dumped it. It didn't look as if it went through a tumble or a fall. It was just like almost placed, like it was thrown and just landed in one place. It wasn't like going and tumbling. So that all, just when you're reading about this, be aware that depending on the viewpoint of the writer, I'm telling you my viewpoint. My viewpoint is all of the excuses and things that Mr. Morpheu has said don't add up to what the things we do physically know about. It doesn't explain why his phone was where it was. It doesn't explain why suddenly she stopped communicating with everybody, including her friend whose daughter was getting married, I believe the next day, and or the next weekend maybe, but she was communicating with this woman, her best friend, over and over, and then suddenly just stops. So that all of those coincidences add up to me to be more indicative of a husband who got out of control, made a mistake, and had to quickly do something, or maybe even planned it a few days before, because we know she said it was over, like 2 days before that happened. So we don't know. We'll find out. But like I said, when you listen to when she disappeared, understand her last proof of life was Saturday at her pool, at her house. We don't have any evidence after that she moved. So, People Magazine, be clear, please. Be nice. So yeah, the defense is going to try to, the defense obviously wants to stick up for their client. The problem I have is key into when the defense goes after the investigators instead of goes after the evidence. When they say, oh, the investigator was a bad guy. The investigator had one investigator out of how many, right? Investigators can't go back in time and make somebody do a bunch of shady things that don't match up. So, I don't know. Yeah. The Barry Morpheu thing. I can't say, I'm obviously not unbiased. So, that's where we stand on that. We will hear, obviously, more about the witness list, though, thing. I wonder what's going on with that. Maybe they're thinking of taking off that guy because he's such a problem, and they're debating what do we do and how does that affect the evidence. I don't know. Mr. Cahill has since resigned, so he's no longer with the department, and obviously is problematic. Again, though, he certainly didn't do anything that somehow made Barry run around his house or run out in the woods where he was looking for a turkey or do any of these weird things that his phone instructed. nobody was involved in those days. So you decide. I don't know. I just question it. So I'm going to pause here and I want to put in a little Patti perspective about when people tell you they're unbiased. Again, I have a partial PhD, which means I finished all my work and took all my tests and passed them. I just did not write a dissertation. But my focus was on cognition, on how people think, about their motivations, about how people make memories. And one of the things we talk about is people create their ideas, memories, from a perspective that you can't get away from. We all carry a bias. I know I have a bias, so by knowing it and self-reflecting on it and actively maybe looking for other people's biases and perspectives, if I try to see the other person's perspective, doesn't mean I can really put myself in their shoes, but it's better. When you hear anybody say, I am unbiased, they are lying to themselves and you, maybe unintentionally. We all carry bias. Men can't help but see things from a man's point of view. I cannot see things completely from a man's point of view because I'm not a man. So it is, I just don't trust anybody who says, I don't have any bias. I just follow the facts. Well, facts are even, as we live in a fact-free world, right? I don't like the word fact. I like the word evidence, especially when we're talking about crime. What was the time? Where were you pinpointed? Those are evidentiary facts. So that's what I like to go with. But let's be honest. A lot of things are based on logic and is it reasonable? And we know when things don't match. So let's just say most violent crimes aren't committed in front of people on camera. So and when people do not tell where people are for a long time, maybe purposefully because evidence is destroyed that way. When people actively hide their crimes, you're not going to have evidence, but you can look at everything they did during that time period. You can look at the context, the contextual situation. Context is almost everything in many things. So again, if it were easy, we wouldn't have trials, right? We would just know. Forensics are great. Technology is great, but but understanding the human mind and the fact that people have patterns and that there is an ology, there is a study to crime. So again, that's why we have juries of our peers. That's why it takes a long time. Okay, enough of that. That's my little soapbox. I'll get off of it now. But anyways, okay, again, another case that I can't be completely unbiased about because I am a mother of 3. So of course, young kids going missing, it breaks all of our hearts, even if you don't have children. It's horrific. But especially imagining this situation when you have kids, it's just, it's hard. Serenity McKinney. My last podcast, the first episode, I said that she was missing. Well, right after we stopped taping Saturday evening, it was reported that she actually had been found by authorities the previous night. It broke more on the Grapevine, where everybody's talking about it, which is what I'm telling you about. And unfortunately, her body was found and not in good shape. Again, so she's been missing. The last time anybody saw her was Christmas Eve of 2020. And although I believe they thought somebody, I think, heard her on the phone, so heard her voice on June 2021, so last June. So it's been June, July, August, September, October, November, December. They reported her missing January 31st. Her grandparents reported her missing. So that's 7 months from June. The body was not in good shape, and not just from being with, like, you know, outside and other environmental things, but the mother, in this case, because the father was living, I believe, out of state and was not involved with the mom. She and her boyfriend, her older boyfriend, she's 21. Her name's Catherine Abby McKinney, and she goes by Abby. And her boyfriend, Dakota Hill, who is 26. She's 21, so 5 years difference. Yeah. They were not the ones to report her missing. The grandmother was. And it seems like they last spoke in June. Then the mother, Abby, stopped talking to her mother. So the family lost contact with the child and the mother. So I'm not sure why it took them so long, but by January 31st, they were reported, both of them were reported missing. They reported both the mom, she didn't know where her mom or granddaughter, you know, where her basically child was. She's 21. And you will hear me probably say in the future, our brains are structurally matured. There's a myelination process, which is like, you can think of an insulating sheath on our brain neurons. It's commonly thought around 25, 26 is when that is fully myelinated. And there's also this integrated process of using your brain in these areas with the myelination process being physically finished. So, but 21, that's why 21 to 26, people still act stupid. I mean, you don't have a lot of forethought. It's because the front part of your brain that's the part that is still like coming online fully structurally, and is being, hopefully you're using it a lot more. And as you do that and you think through things more, the use as well as the physical maturity helps you act in more mature, thoughtful, premeditated ways, in a good premeditation, like when you actually think things out. Premeditation isn't always bad, only when it's a crime. So this girl was 21 and the baby was 2, so she had her, I guess, when she was about 18. Young mom, the boyfriend, I don't know, but okay, so she's reported missing. This is in Shelbyville, Kentucky. They go to find her. They find the mom nearby, question her on February 3rd. She's not really going to talk. Flees with her boyfriend, leaves town to Kansas, where she's now they're looking, obviously found mom, not the child. So now they charge her and her boyfriend with what everybody seems to be charged with at first, which is custodial interference, meaning where's the child, first they took, so on February 3rd, to make it custodial interference, the state had to take custody. So when she wouldn't show her child, she would not produce her child, the state was like, okay, so we're going to say we have custody of your child. And then once that was done, then they could charge her with custodial interference, which basically says produce that child. And she could not do so in Kansas, and so she and her boyfriend were charged with custodial interference and brought back to Kentucky. And it was between the 3rd and then on the 6th. The 6th was when she was found in Kansas, and the 18th, this past Friday, was when the remains were found. And so now they're both charged with murder and, this is the part I don't like to talk about, abuse of a corpse. So they did something horrible. We don't know. The autopsy of Serenity was to be done Saturday. And we, as of this taping, which is Monday, we do not know what the results of that are. The parents last Tuesday, so when my podcast or YouTube channel first went live, that day, the parent and boyfriend, so Abby and her boyfriend Dakota, were both in court, but it was pleading to the other counts of custodial interference, and they appeared individually and were asked if they had a lawyer, and she said she's retained an attorney. He asked for an attorney from the state. He does not have an attorney and needs one. You know how they always say that line about if you need attorney, one will be provided. One was provided, I guess, for him. And they will then, so that was just on that custodial. So the charges in appearing are delayed from the next charges. They charge you, then they set the hearing date. So that was for those charges last Tuesday. So they said early March. So tomorrow is March 1st. So soon, probably sometime the rest of the end of this week, they will then plead to the next charges, which is the murder and the abuse of a corpse. Bad scene. Anyway, so we will follow up on that, and it is horrible. So, staying with the children that are reported missing way later. Again, if you don't know somebody's missing, it's a lot easier to hide a crime. Duty Ron, one of my YouTube creators that I follow, he's a retired New York City cop, is probably a little right of center. I would probably consider myself center or a little left of center at times. So you may or may not like him. I like him for his perspective, and he has the best resources. He has a death investigator, Barbara Butcher, which isn't that interesting, that's her name. And this time he was talking about the case of Harmony Montgomery. If you remember, Harmony Montgomery if she's around, she will be 7. She wasn't reported missing for, we think, 2 years because her mother was having a problem with a drug addiction, which many people do. They lived in Massachusetts. Harmony was with a foster family and had been for most of her little life. And it's still unclear exactly what happened in the Massachusetts court, except the judge seems to have been retiring quickly, like soon, and I guess they have to clear their docket. I am not clear about this. This is my speculation, just my opinion, but it seems as if there was a home study that was ordered before Harmony's custody could be considered, and the judge didn't wait for the home study to be finished and instead just gave custody to the father. Harmony's father had, if you watch like criminal shows, like a rap sheet as long as your arm for very, very violent crimes. I mean, shooting someone in the face potentially. He was looked at, lots of assault. Also, I believe drug charges. From what I remember, just my opinion. But I mean, someone who you would probably think shouldn't be in charge of, a 5-year-old child. I think she was actually 4 going on 5. So she was not in school yet. He immediately moved her to New Hampshire. Now, there is an interstate pact, and that's kind of what was spoken about. This whole Harmony Montgomery is the reason it's an update. Is what I have to tell you about was that there was a 7-page report that came out of New Hampshire about like looking at the DCYF, which is the Department of Child and Youth Family Services Department. It's called different things in different states, but it's who handles cases when there's problems with people taking care of children. It just seems that it's very hard. The workers have too many cases. In this case, it was found New Hampshire seems to be a bit of a mess, and the problem is the governor is talking about these are the changes we're going to make. Well, Duty Run brought up the fact that in 2017, the same type of thing was done. The same governor was in charge, and the same sort of recommendations were made. But that was 2017. And two children had died that were in the system, and it was their parents. And so apparently this is a pattern, and the fact that Harmony's father, they did go and see him. There were reports. Nobody looked. Nobody took the children away. In fact, he was found living in his car after the mom did get clean, tried everything to find her kid. The problem was different states. And, she lost custody. She doesn't, have rights. It just becomes very mucked up. Anyways, I recommend that you watch that and maybe get involved as a child advocate, or get involved with your local city or state to do something about, I don't know. All I know is that maybe we can vote with our dollars. So when taxes come up for children's things, let's do something about it. I don't know. It's a mess, and it's really sad. Kids keep dying, even though people keep talking about them. Okay. Speaking of which, the Oakley Carlson case. This is in Oakville, Washington, a very small town in the county of Gray Harbor. There are no updates about Oakley. Oakley is a 5-year-old girl who has been missing over a year. It was her principal who reported it, that the police then did something. She reported it in December. Then they started a case, then found out, in November, when was this? She was reported missing December 6th. I think she had last been seen in a 2000, the new thing is, sorry, let me start over. So the reason I'm talking about Oakley is because a new missing persons poster is up. And they want people to think back to November of last year, and if they remember seeing a silver 2012 Suburban LT. She was last seen in that car. There had been a fire at their house in November of 2021. Now, the parents are in custody for, their charge is, they were charged with abandonment of a dependent person and endangerment with a controlled substance. So one of their charges was related to the daughter who was 6 years old, who they were not giving a medicine to. Now, in December, Stephanie Harlow, she has a big crime channel. It's Coffee and Crime. She has other crime channels that she does with it. She did a very thorough deep dive on the background of this case. And I'll just tell you, personally, speculatively, I agree with her that they probably were not giving their child something that you could use to make a certain drug that starts with an M and ends with an F and gives you bad facial scars. They told the police, first of all, they did not say that when the fire happened, they didn't call the fire department. They called later. Again, you can't say that's evidence of something. All you can say is, that's not right. Why don't you call the fire department? They live out in the middle of nowhere. Their house catches on fire, but he takes care of it himself. And, by the way, it's Oakley's fault. She did it, a 5-year-old. She was burning the couch. Now, when they did finally tell the fire department, they said later, this happened. They came out to investigate, and they thought it started in the microwave. So, if you go listen to Stephanie Howell, I agree with her. There's something that people are known to make in microwaves that maybe if it gets too heated, I'm starting to shake my head. I do that when I get worked up, sorry. But, really bad. So, who knows what? We don't know. The last time she was seen was around the time of that fire. But, so, let's hope she's still around. So please look up that missing poster. She's a little dark-haired girl. She's absolutely beautiful. Beautiful smile. The parents will be, so they've just been charged, and their trial date is set for April 19th. So we will look, well, we're not going to look forward to it, but we'll hear more about that then. All right. There is another missing child. There is no real update, but the case of Michael Vaughn, last time I told you about him, I said he was from Utah. He's from Fruitland, Idaho. His mother, Brandy, was on The Interview Room with Chris Madonna. The Interview Room is a YouTube channel. I think it might also be a podcast. Most of us are both. I would definitely go check that out. She described her son Michael, Monkey. He was a really bright, and you know, like, not, children aren't all same. The temperament can be different, and temperament and personality are often used interchangeably. But this child, one of those children who could watch you do something very mechanical, then would copy it. She had to keep a close eye on him. She has 2 other kids. She has an older daughter who is 16, and then they have a baby daughter who is, I believe, 2 years old. So she had just started a new job, was going out to work. It was on her 8th day of work. She got a call from her husband that her son, Monkey, was out. Where was he? Now, his nickname is Monkey, so right there, if you've had children or had known children in your family or been a teacher or been around kids, if you're nicknamed Monkey, it's probably because you move all around. I had one of those. You just couldn't stop her. Well, she related, so hearing her story explains a lot more why we think this is a child abduction, and it is not one of the cases like our other cases. It was reported immediately. It was, everybody helped, everybody looked. It's really frightening. He's a very cute child. The problem was, he went out into his backyard, which was fine. He was allowed to do that. Problematically, he went into the garage and could fiddle around and get out a door he wasn't supposed to go out, and then got out into the street. I think she said a week before or 2 weeks before, he had been found by his grandfather. His grandfather was coming to their house and saw him walking down the street before. So, you know, he's a 5-year-old. He's, you know, it was dinner time. Dad's taking care of baby. Probably, I don't know what the 16-year-old's doing, but, you know, whatever. I mean, you do a lot at night when you're getting dinner on the table, and especially if it's the dad. You know, mom's just started a new job, not used to mom being gone, probably overwhelmed. Kid goes out the back door to play it was a, you know, contained backyard. You've got a 2-year-old, you're like, oh, okay, good, let him run around. So everybody, you know, is blaming the dad. So of course, he is not on camera as much. He is devastated. And I personally believe what the mom is saying. I believe that they had nothing to do with this. Could I be wrong? Sure. I don't think so, though. And because an Amber Alert wasn't called, now there's this weird thing about Amber Alerts. I think they like to have a last seen with. Like, they like to have a description of a person or a car. Like, something people can, like, they know for sure the child was taken away. When the child just is missing at first, they don't start an Amber Alert, because what are you alerting to? It's a gray zone, and the mom, I'm with her. Brandy, I'm with you. Michael should have been called in on an Amber Alert immediately, at least within 12 hours of them looking. By the next morning, they had to drag the nearby river, search the banks. He is nowhere there. So he didn't disappear into thin air. He's a little monkey, and he's absolutely beautiful. Please, please, if you live anywhere in Idaho, Montana, Washington State, right over the border in California, I mean, somebody grab this little boy. Pay attention if somebody has a new grandchild staying with them. Oh, I adopted him. You've got to look at everybody. Hopefully somebody who loved children took him, and we will get him back. It is a real sad thing. But please take a listen to the mom, Brandy, on the interview room. Chris McDonough has the all the information about what numbers to call if you see him. Obviously, contact the FBI. He's a loved, very active, beautiful child, and we hope that he is soon found safe and healthy. Next case. So there's a lot of talk about, oh, they unsealed a search warrant on this guy out at Moab. So Moab is Moab, Utah. We heard about it last summer. Newlywed couple, Kylan Schulte, 24, beautiful girl, and Crystal Turner, her wife, 38, love of her life. Everybody in their family was ecstatic that they got married. They worked in Moab. It's kind of a small community, although it swells, you know, in the sun, when there's a lot of tourists. In fact, we'll be talking. I have a little of my own update on the Brian Laundrie, my own personal update. But if you might have heard, Brian Laundrie was considered, what if he was the creepy guy? He and Gabby Petito were out in that area. Okay, number one, it was like the week or two before. It was not at the same time that they were there. Yes, something happened in front of Moonflower Co-op, which is where Kylan Schulte worked, but actually they were at a different place eating breakfast. It was not in Moonflower Co-op that they ate. That's a grocery store. It was not connected. So, in my opinion, and in the police's opinion. But there was another creepy guy, but we didn't know about this. Now, here's the deal, though. Prefacing everything I say with, they unsealed the warrant because they're no longer considering this person a person of interest, at least for now, because there was evidence of blood on his jacket. It did not match. So let me just preface everything with, the blood did not match. There is no connection. Now, what is interesting is, so we don't know his name because he's not a suspect and he's not a person of interest that they're identifying. But they unsealed this because it no longer think of him as a suspect. But we do know that there was an unnamed 27-year-old man who was pulled over for a traffic violation. He was speeding. And the officer got a creepy feeling, like enough that he didn't want to turn his back and like go back, write a ticket, like deal with him too much. He didn't feel good about him. And then he was in the area. He was living around Moab. He was called in. He was questioned. Then they looked to where he was living. He lived a lot in his car, and he reported to them that he stayed out in around the South Loop area, within, like if you walked it, within 4 miles of where they were staying and where the crime occurred. So they were part of the van life, camping with their van. They were in an area that was somewhat, it was not on the touristy side of Moab. We're not sure what happened, but they did not show up for work on, I believe I'm trying to see the timeline. They were reported missing, I believe, on the 16th of August, but they were found on the 18th. On the 13th, they had been in they had mentioned that in a bar where they were having dinner and stuff at night, they said, yeah, there's this creepy guy out by us. So the creepy guy, that's where everybody thought, oh, Brian Laundrie's creepy. Maybe he went and did this, which is not true. But this guy is a creepy guy as well. And he was within miles of their campsite. And he did say he went into the Moonflower Co-op. But they did, they checked out his car. They checked out where he said he was camping. They did find a jacket with blood on it. It came back. It is not related to the girls. So unfortunately, that seems to be a dead end. Of course, we don't know. We don't know his name. We just know he's 27 and creepy and was in the area, but the blood didn't match. Now, so maybe the blood didn't match on that. I don't know. I'm not saying he did anything, because they unsealed that because he's not a suspect anymore, and they can say, look, basically we're following all these leads. Again, though, sometimes we find out people are looked at, and like the 19-year-old out in Colorado Springs, they were right on top of that guy, looked at him, couldn't find anything. Years went by until he told his wife about her. So we know that the Moab police are still looking and investigating. And if you know anything, if you were out in Moab, Utah, around August 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, check your pictures, check your videos. All right. So now we are to, let me tell you about this. So, last time I filmed, I mentioned that Bob Saget's injuries, the autopsy just said cracked skull. Oh my gosh, how could he have cracked his skull? And I was going to tell you that there was a neurosurgeon that talked all about how he saw injuries like this that were traumatic, like from a motorcycle accident, like big falls. How could there be no blood? Something must have happened. Nefarious, questioning, mysterious. All right, so my little sister, who's married to a doctor, I said, hey, ask him. I know it's not a specialty area, but ask him. Could you have a huge, hairline fracture from falling down and not have blood everywhere? And like, I'm thinking she's going to get the answer. No, has to be traumatic, right? Anyways, before she had the chance, or if she was ever going to, because she doesn't usually like to bother her important husband with my crazy theories of the, kooky sister, she called me today and said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. My husband just had a crazy case. Now, we don't know the names of anybody involved because of HIPAA and all that stuff, but a case where a man came into the ER. He came with his girlfriend. He had driven 2 hours to see his girlfriend. She said, he's acting weird. He's not himself. His personality's off. I think he hit his head. In fact, he sent me a text that said, they said I fell on Friday, and this is Sunday. So she's like, I think something's not right. And the doctor reportedly was like, well, and he was examined. No injuries. The doctor that examined him said, doesn't look like this is a head injury. There's absolutely no trauma on the back of his head. I don't feel anything. But he had a temperature. So we took he sent him to the imaging, which is where this comes in. Crack. Huge crack. Fracture, just like Bob Saget. Back of his head. Even though there was nothing exterior that showed it anymore. And they had to life flight him to the nearest hospital because he was like going to die because of the injury. It was that severe within 2 days. So, moral of the story is, if you fall, and the guy never, that's the crazy thing is, he was acting weird to her, but he had no memory of doing it. He didn't even believe he sent the text. So that's kind of insane, right? So this goes more into, how could this have happened to Bob Saget? Apparently, we don't even know if it happened. He didn't even have to slip there that night. I mean, this guy, it was his friends Friday night to Sunday. And yes, he was, I mean, so maybe Bob Saget fell and at a different time, like a day before. And this guy drove 2 hours. Bob Saget only drove 1 hour. So the moral of the story is still, if you fall, or if you see somebody take a really bad fall, get them to have their head checked out. Really, it is life or death. So I'm sorry to all the conspiracy theorists, and usually I love a good conspiracy, but it has to be logical and reasonable. And in this case, I am sorry, but I think that provides me with enough evidence and rationale to go. I mean, because I didn't think it could be without having a horrible cut. I mean, head cuts bleed awful, but apparently you can fall down, smack your skull hard enough to crack it hugely and to, you know, create a deadly situation, and you can't even tell. And you don't remember. And you know, thank goodness that guy got help, and thank goodness somebody was watching and said, yeah, he's off. So I guess if you're normally angry and ornery and you fall, nobody might notice. But this guy was apparently very sweet, very kind, and was acting irritable and off. So I don't know if Bob Saget's personality, like if he changed, went from exuberant to maybe a little subdued. I don't know. Only Bob Saget's friends know. But what I'm saying is, I think we can let that one. I'm closing that case.